A short time of prepping, and I wanted to come back and re-look at this little ordeal between Goggins, Crenshaw, and Eddie Gallagher. Now, guys, this is a bit of a compilation, and of course, I already did an initial reaction to this. This video right here will be left in the description box, as well as obviously the link to the channel that we are on. It's called Military Overload. I actually have not really looked at that channel altogether, but I'm still going to leave the link for you guys and this video here. Not just my video, but the full video without my commentary. And yes, that was a horn that just went off. But still, though, if you hear any jump cuts or whatnot, or if you see any jump cuts, it's probably due to the fact that I had to edit something out, which, by the way, was more than likely an ad. So I just figured I want to let you guys know that right off the bat. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and watch this one more time and see if we can get a better feel for what's going on here.
Oh. I've got something to say that I've been holding on to for about 4.5 years now. I've tried to deal with this internally. It's been weighing me down for some time. I've tried to just let it go, just like I have with the whole nightmare that happened to me and my family. But I feel compelled to come out now and speak the truth about a certain individual. This is not about me. I'm not trying to get into a petty little back and forth match with this person. This is about you, the American people, no matter what side of the aisle that you sit on. This is also, and most importantly to me, about my teammates in the SEAL teams. I feel like you guys should know the truth as well. So back in 2019, I was charged with war crimes, premeditated murder, and I was facing life in prison without parole. I sat in pretrial confinement for about 9 months before my actual trial. During that time, my wife, Andrea, and brother, Sean, along with a certain group of teammates that I had, were doing everything they could to garner support, to get the truth out about what was going on with me, to expose all the lies and corruption around the UCMJ and everything they were doing to put me away for life. During that time, one name kept popping up. That was Dan Crenshaw.
Now, gang, really quick, I'm going to be leaving some links also to Eddie Gallagher's situation. Now, Gallagher, he got into it, and of course, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys may know the story. It's kind of complicated. I myself am tempted to do a bit of a video essay on it, especially as this channel transitions more into like more overall military stories and military history. I've not been up on that, but that was kind of the thing that I wanted to do, especially I got thinking about it while I was posting more and more to Claymore, because it's more of an everyday channel. And I did mention last week that I was going to try to post 4 to 5 videos per week, and this was one of those videos that I wanted to do. The thing about the situation with Gallagher is that we've known for a while that Crenshaw was a scumbag, that he was obviously playing the American people. He's been playing especially his voter base. Now, I'll leave the previous video I did on this in the description box as well to go along with this one here. But the situation with Eddie Gallagher required everybody to kind of like stand in unison with him, so that way he could in fact get the proper, I'm not saying get off, I mean, me personally, I believe that he shouldn't have gone to prison or anything. That's just me, but you still want the courts to kind of work out, and you still want all the information to come out and all the investigation to go through. Crenshaw, for whatever reason, wasn't exactly on board with helping one of his brothers out. I mean, I think regardless of the situation, you still need to at least give your brother an opportunity to defend himself, essentially, is basically what I'm trying to say, regardless of whatever the charge is. I mean, we do, as veterans, have a brotherhood. But then again, at the same time, though, maybe it's not as strong as we thought.
My brother wanted to go speak to him to try and get his support, as well as my teammates who were doing everything they could. And this was for obvious reasons. Dan was a prior SEAL. They thought that this was a no-brainer and that he should get behind it, especially with all the information that was coming out. So my brother, who lives near D.C., was going to Congress almost on a daily basis, knocking on every congressman's door on both sides of the aisle, trying to get them to look at what was really going on and get their support. One of those individuals was Dan Crenshaw. So my brother ended up talking to his staff a couple times. They gave him the runaround, but that did not stop him. He kept going back day after day and finally got a hold of Dan. Dan told him he wanted to wait till the situation developed before he made a decision, which, got it. That makes sense. Along with that, some of my teammates who were on that deployment, who were on the ground the day of the incident, went to one of Crenshaw's fundraising parties, pulled him aside and spoke to him face to face, told him what was happening to me was complete BS, that it was chock full of lies, and that I was getting screwed over. Dan told them he'll see what he can do. Once my brother got a hold of Dan, he said, once my brother got a hold of him a second time, Dan said that there wasn't enough information or whatever. My brother got pretty frustrated and ended up sending Dan a semi-scathing email, calling him out for being a politician and not being part of the Brotherhood and not supporting a fellow SEAL.
Now, like I said, given Dan's MO and what we've known, or at least what we have found out about him since he came into office, since he came into Congress, none of this right here surprises me. Now, there are some that would say, why would he come out with this? Why would he come out with this now? A lot of people would say this. The thing about that is this here. Just because something comes out late doesn't always mean that it's not true. But then again, at the same time, I kind of see the point. Why do you come out with this now? The thing that you have to understand is this right here. This is coming out in 2023, not 2024. Dan Crenshaw is up for re-election. I don't think this is being done for political purposes. I think this is being done because, well, there's probably a lot of validity to what Eddie is saying. And I'm not saying I'm not saying he's 100% spot on. But if his brother has essentially went to try to get Dan to step in to get involved, especially being a SEAL himself, and Dan for the most part is just not willing to go along with that, it kind of makes you wonder who's pulling Dan's strings. Now, we'll get to that here in a second. Like I said, I'm straight up reacting to what I didn't see. But if you see the previous video, Eddie talks about Dan not, looking him in the eye. That's guilt. That's, I feel guilty about something. Okay, if you don't want to look somebody in the eye, then that right there is a pretty strong indication that you have a guilty conscience. And I'm not saying this to defend Dan, but obviously he knew he screwed up.
Dan replied to him and said that he would see what he could do. So, as my incarceration went on, and it was late into my incarceration when 50 congressmen ended up signing a petition to release me from prison so I could properly defend myself before trial. They basically were saying, give this man the constitutional rights he deserves before he goes to trial for his life. One congressman would not sign that petition. That was Dan Crenshaw. Instead, he decided to write his own petition and pretty much say to keep me in prison, but just to let me see my lawyers, which were rights I should have already had in the first place. At that point, we decided to scrap asking Dan for help and just move on. No harm, no foul. So obviously, I went to trial, was found not guilty, and ended up retiring out of the Navy. Not long after I retired, I got invited to a Turning Point event by Nine Line. While at that event, I just happened to run into Dan Crenshaw. I saw him coming down the hallway, and I wanted to go up and talk to him just to get his thoughts on the whole situation and why he did not support me or why he made up his own petition saying to keep me in prison. I was not angry. I just wanted to talk to him, team guy, to get his thoughts. He saw me from down the hall and immediately looked down at the ground and speed walked right past me. Didn't even give me the time of day. So at that point, I was like, all right, he's a politician. I can kind of understand why he didn't want to support if it would hurt him in some capacity. So I just let it go. Not too long after that, I obviously wrote the book. And when the book came out, I went to Congress to do a book signing for the 50 congressmen who did support me, who did sign that petition to get me out of prison. While there, I was pulled aside by multiple congressmen and was told that Dan Crenshaw was actively working against me behind the scenes. He was going up to each of those congressmen who were supporting me, telling them not to support me, that I was guilty, and that it was his community and they needed to butt out and let him handle it. I don't know how much of an arrogant statement that can be made that Dan said it's his community.
That's also something else too about Crenshaw, assuming this is true. It also tells you that Dan is somebody who really loves the spotlight. He really loves the power. He really loves to have that ability to shape and form. It's my community. Dude, I have no idea the actual total of active SEALs or the actual overall total of former frogmen. And while Dan may be in that community, I don't see how it is his community. The exact same way I don't think it's Eddie Gallagher or David Goggins' community as far as like it being theirs. It's obviously their community as far as being in that community. But for Dan to say something like that just tells me what type of person that he is. It tells me that he really and truly is an actual honest-to-God scumbag.
Joke. But regardless, after hearing this, I was pretty disgusted. It's one thing to not support me and just to back off and not do anything. But Dan, knowing the full well the truth about what was really going on, still went and tried to get people not to support me and pretty much try and put me away for life without parole. The way I look at that is Dan was trying to kill me. He was doing this for political favor. He was doing this to climb the political ladder. The reason I'm putting this out right now, is because if Dan Crenshaw is willing to lie, to gain favor with other politicians, to climb that political ladder, and pretty much throw somebody away for life, what do you think he's doing to the American people? This man cannot stop lying. And I'll give you some examples. Recently, David Goggins was on a podcast with my good friend Aaron Singerman. I listened to the podcast. I listened to him expose Dan for who he really is. After I listened to the podcast, I DM'd Dave Goggins and said, great job on exposing Dan, only because I know the truth about him and what he did to me. Now, I had no communications with Goggins before this. Me and him really did not know each other. But after I sent him that DM, he then sent me a text message back. And after I read it, this is what really compelled me to come forward and do what I'm doing now. And I'll read you the text. And this is from Crenshaw to Goggins. Hey man, listen to your Rogan podcast, good shit. I had no idea about any of that shit with that Team 6 guy making YouTube videos about you and all that. Again, sorry if I made it seem like I was ever in that category. I am not. I wouldn't have tried to get you to speak at my events if I didn't respect you and your message. Like you, I've been in the public eye since about 2018 and understand very well how people will climb over your back to get higher, get more clicks, and get a little more famous. Pieces of shit like Eddie Gallagher have tried to do that at my expense, after I tried helping him get out of prison. That should never happen between team guys. God bless and Happy New Year. So, this text message is chock full of lies, which is not surprising. Dan sent this to Goggins after Dan himself was on a podcast talking trash on Goggins. And he is telling Goggins that he tried helping me get out of prison. Again, this man can't stop lying. He'll say whatever it takes to get people on his side and then do the opposite behind the scenes. This has been a repeating pattern of his since he's been in office.
It sounds a lot like what we would later on find out about John McCain. Now, I could leave a lot of videos from Razor Fist in the description box. I don't think I have to, but I'll definitely leave the link to his channel. Sorry about my throat. But the thing is this here. None of this surprises me about Dan. We kind of figured out his MO when he came up with the TAPS Act. If you actually go back and re-look at some of his interviews, like I went back and re-looked, I think, at his little debate with Bill Maher, and I was like, I remember actually praising it then. But looking at it now, I kind of think to myself, Dan's pretty well protected by a lot of people, especially when it comes to donors. Makes me almost wonder if they're not setting him up to maybe be another John McCain type. Now, we'll talk more about that towards the end of the video, but let's go ahead and let this right here run a little bit more.
Now, I also have some documents here from my brother. It's a list in chronological order of each time he attempted to get Dan's support. He also has emails in here to Dan asking him for his support. I also have the petition that Dan wrote saying to keep me in prison. I'll have all of these on a link that you can click below and you can see for yourself. Again, the reason I'm telling you this is because this is not about me. This is about you, the American people, no matter what side of the aisle you sit behind. Just because someone is a Navy SEAL or because they were wounded in combat does not make them a good person. Does not mean they have character. I want you to think about that next time you vote. Look at this person's character. Look what he's saying, and then look what he's doing behind the scenes. If a person makes a decision and then has to put out a video the next day explaining why he made that decision, it's probably because he knows he didn't make the right decision. I don't want to make this political. I want people to know who they're voting for and who is representing them. So, Dan, if you want to have a conversation, I'll be in DC next week, actually doing real work to support our brothers and the teams and our law enforcement and our first responders. So if you want to have a conversation, you know where to find me, buddy.
Many of you know I was on the Chips and Caviar podcast discussing the truth about my military career, a lot of lies out there about it, and also discussing Dan Crenshaw and some of the comments he made. During the podcast, I make Dan look slimy and like a liar. He responds yesterday and do what you got to do. But he tries to make me look, I'm disrespecting Mike Day, who's a true war hero. It's truly the grossest, most cowardly, desperate move I've ever seen in my life to redirect something off of him and put it somewhere else to draw on people's heartstrings. Context about this. When Dan was talking crap about me on the podcast, he mentions who he thinks is tough. He believes someone that's tough is a guy that gets shot 28 times and walks away. During my podcast, Aaron asked me, who do you think he was talking about? I said, I have no idea. He said, you think it's Marcus Luttrell? I said, I have no idea. I believe he's talking about some dead guy. Because while I know Mike, I didn't know Mike got shot that many times. I thought that they were talking about a fictional character. So if you want the truth about it, go to the podcast. 59 minutes, 37 seconds, and 1 hour, 1 minute, 50 seconds. And get the truth for yourself. Stop listening to lies.
This is what actually makes me mad. Listen to this.
Aaron, the Beverly Hills Housewives of SEAL Team 6, or how'd you say it?
The Housewives of SEAL Team 6. That's
Okay, don't edit that shit. Don't edit that shit. I know they're going to be mad at shit, but that's the truth. The Housewives of SEAL Team 6.
The Housewives of SEAL Team 6. So, yeah, the guys who leave their families and deploy, get shot, blown up. Yeah, housewives, that's just what they are. It's the Housewives of SEAL Team 6. Just a bunch of drama queens. Is that your implication, David?
Now, really quick, I understand where Dan's going with this right here, talking about, I understand where Dan's going. And like I said, you guys know me, I don't like Dan, and obviously I would be a little bit more pro believing Eddie Gallagher and David Goggins on this. And now, I haven't actually watched it, but I'm going to give Dan the opportunity here. And even though, like I said, even though I don't really care for Dan, now that we know a lot more about him, I still want to be fair to him here. So we're going to let this right here for the most part run out, and then I'm going to give some more commentary towards the end. But I still hold in my prediction that that basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to set Dan up to be like another John McCain type, essentially another Manchurian candidate. But we're going to let this right here roll out, and we're going to come back at the end of this segment, all right?
You know, a lot of my friends are at SEAL Team 6. Actually, I just saw a bunch of them recently at a funeral at Arlington, burying another SEAL, died in training. That's what SEAL Team 6 is doing. What are you doing? Housewives of SEAL Team 6. You didn't get into SEAL Team 6. I didn't either. Right? I have a vision thing. Wouldn't let me in. I had to leave the Navy. But things don't always go the way we want. And we can either choose to be resentful about it, hate them for it, or move on. But you're gonna disparage this group of people that have done so much for this country and sacrificed so much. My friends have been blown up so many damn times at SEAL Team 6. They have to take training positions because the TBIs have just gotten to be too much. It's getting desperate. The amount of deployments some of these people have done is unbelievable. And to you, they're just the housewives of SEAL Team 6. You know what they talk about? I hang out with them all the time. Not you. They don't talk about you, David. They don't say anything about you. Been in this community for 15 years. Never heard your name once until I got into the public figure space. That was the first time I'd heard of you.
Okay, now here's my thoughts. As I've said before, you guys know me. If you've watched my content for a while, you know that I don't care for Dan Crenshaw. Red flag laws, the minute he did that right there, exposed him. Recent attitudes that he has had towards recent topics. Basically taking the high road every chance he can get, not answering tough questions anymore. I've begun to really sour on Crenshaw. Now, Eddie Gallagher's situation, I've already told you how I feel. I don't think he should have had to go through that. It seemed to me like, for the most part, what Eddie Gallagher was doing was simply his job. Now, Crenshaw, I do personally believe, was working against Gallagher in that situation, more than likely due to the fact that Crenshaw's probably got some people handling him who didn't want to deal with it and probably wanted Gallagher to go away, which makes me wonder exactly what Gallagher knows about the whole shebang bang as far as the government and everything that's going on. Like, what exactly is Crenshaw? What exactly is Crenshaw hiding? Goggins, on the other hand, I need to do a little bit more research. I'm not going to lie. And I haven't had time to sit back and actually watch that podcast. But still, though, at the same time, it makes you wonder exactly how much crap is being not mentioned here. Now, guys, I'm going to leave it at this right here. What's going to happen is that I'm eventually going to come back probably a few weeks from now, and I'm going to try to create some type of video essay, some type of story on what's actually going on with this situation, do a little bit more research. I haven't really had time to actually get into this, but now I'm kind of getting to the point where I do have a little more time. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of do that and try to come out with some form of video essay on what the actual story is, what everybody's talking about, some actual additional research. Like I said, I wanted to kind of reassess the previous take that I had. So, yes, and I'll be leaving this full episode from Military Overload in the description box. Now, guys, if you guys like this type of content, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section.